episode is brought to you by Merchant Spring. Vendor performance data at your fingertips. Visit merchantspring.io for more information.
Hi everyone, and welcome to another live episode of Marketplace Masters, brought to you by Merchant Spring, and as you heard, the leading marketplace analytics platform for Amazon agencies and vendors. Now, Marketplace Masters is all about going deeper into the challenges that vendors, brands, and agencies face to lift performance via really practical actions and insight. I'm your host, Paul Sonneveld, and today we are going over the keys to achieving operational best practice of the Amazon vendor platform and how do you set yourself for success, especially when it comes to keeping chargebacks at a minimum. Now, to help me do this, I've invited Chris Khoo to join us and share his expertise. Chris is the founder of and sales director of Khoo Commerce Limited, a UK-based software development company firmly focused on helping companies sell to Amazon. Chris has been with Khoo Commerce since 2019, so brings with him a broad range of experience to the conversation today. Thank you for being on the show today, Chris.
It's a pleasure to be here, Paul. Nice to meet you, everyone.
So, look, I've been looking forward to this session for a while because when it comes to Amazon vendor, chargebacks and processes are such a big topic. But before we get into the specifics here, Chris, let's start at the top. Set the scene for us, seller versus vendor, and then, what are chargebacks? Just layman's terms, paint a picture for us.
Yeah, so I'm sure many people in the chat will already know the difference between seller and vendor. Forgive me if this is going over well-trodden ground, but Seller Central is essentially the marketplace model of Amazon, and Vendor Central is when you wholesale to Amazon. So the main difference is who owns the product. In Seller Central, you own the product through and through, from start to finish. It's yours. Whether you fulfill it or Amazon fulfills it through FBA, it's still your product. With Vendor Central, it's a classic retail or wholesale relationship where you are selling the product to Amazon and then they are retailing it themselves. So commonly on a listing, you'll see sold by and fulfilled by Amazon, whereas for a 3P listing, you might say sold by company ABC, but fulfilled by Amazon. That's using the FBA model. Shall I go straight into chargebacks as well, Paul?
Yeah, well, actually, before we do that, I wanted to ask you one other question, Chris, which is, I know, like you and I have chatted a few times, and I know you are super passionate about operations, right? Not everyone, most people are super passionate about Amazon A+ content or driving down your tacos. You're actually super passionate about operations. Why are you so passionate about it?
I'm glad you asked, Paul. It's almost like we planned this question. It's just my favorite topic. Everyone, if you go out there on the market, everyone will talk about marketing. They'll talk about driving sales. They'll talk about boosting your optimization of the listing, getting your ACoS down, things like that. Everyone talks about this. You can find many brilliant companies out there that will help you deal with that. But operational challenges for me is really like the nuts and bolts of actually delivering those sales. Taking them from you to Amazon. And it's often in that process that there can be big inefficiencies, big frustrations, time problems. If you talk to your employees who are actually doing this process, they might kind of hate Amazon. There are people that love Amazon. They're the ones making the money going, oh yeah, we've got, made 6 figures, 7 figures a month. And then you've got the people actually doing the account management, doing the warehousing, and they'll hate Amazon. And my joy and my job is to try and help these people not to hate Amazon so much, make it a channel which you can scale and grow. And often, you'll have an account which is like 100K, let's grow it to 500K. But you also have to consider, what does that mean for you in the back office? What does that mean for your teams and so on? And that's what we get to do. I really like that kind of stuff.
Awesome. So yeah, let's go back to charges and chargebacks. What are they, Chris, and what are the different types?
Yeah, again, a very well-trodden ground topic for many people on the call here. I know will already be very familiar with these. Chargebacks are essentially a catch-all term for any kind of non-compliance when it comes to Amazon. So that can be from order management, shipment management, packaging, invoicing, anything where you deviate from their standards in any kind of way. Amazon will charge you for it. Typically either a fixed flat fee like 10, 12, 15 pence per unit in the case of labeling mismatches, or they'll charge you a percentage of the items that you shipped, which can actually be really bad for your margin. Not that I need to say that to anyone here, but it's, they'll say you have a tolerance limit. Maybe you have to hit 90% over the next, the last trading 4 weeks. And if you dip below that, then they'll start to charge you 3%, 6%, 9% of the shipped value of the goods that you were non-compliant with in some way. So an example would be they asked you to ship an order between this window, Monday to Sunday, and they actually arrived the Monday after. And they'll say, okay, you were a few days late on that shipment. We're going to charge you for the value of items that were in that shipment that arrived late. And if you're sent, if that PO was £10,000, £50,000, and you're taking 3% of that, £300 or £1,500 respectively, that adds up very quickly over the year and over the month. So these charges can roll into the tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands for companies, depending on the scale that they're at when it comes to selling with Amazon.
And I know I've just put a slide up here where we have some of the different ones. There's a range of charges here. You've picked out some specific ones here. Can you talk about those a little bit more?
Yeah, so this here on the screen here is just a screen grab from Vendor Central. You'll be familiar with it. It's under operational performance inside the Vendor Central portal on Amazon. And they give them lots of different names. So you'll be able to see cart information compliance, ASN accuracy, invoice accuracy, various different things. And there are things that they kind of have different solutions and different problems. So for example, if you've got a packaging problem, you need to review if you need to bubble wrap or bag your product. If you've got an on-time problem, you need to review your admin processes that help with that. And there is no kind of one-size-fits-all fix for all chargebacks, because you have to go into each one, identify the cause of it, work through with your teams what's causing it, and do the best things that you can to ameliorate and mitigate those issues. So the ones that I've started here on screen, I don't know if you could make it a touch bigger, Paul. I'm having trouble reading all the different ones. Thank you. But they're the ones that we are mainly focused on. So PO on-time accuracy, middle at the top, and ASN accuracy, bottom middle, and cast information compliance are some of the big ones. And also not listed here is actually shortage claims. So it's going to be some of the biggest issues that people experience is shortage claims, which I'll come on to later. Some people count chargebacks to include shortage claims, but shortages is any kind of discrepancy between I shipped 100 units, Amazon claims we received 95 units, and there's that shortage claim of 5 units, which is often a dispute point between the vendor and Amazon. And that is often also one of the biggest drains on margin, because you maybe only make money on the last 20 items that you ship. So to lose 5 out of 20 of them is a big drop in profitability for you.
So I know one of the areas that you really specialize in and very passionate about is labeling. Talk to me about how does labeling relate to some of those charges we were just talking about now?
Yeah, so labeling is not immediately the most glamorous topic you can jump in with. I mean, people kind of think, oh, why are we talking about labeling? But there are two main reasons. One is to do with the operational process on your side, to do with how you actually get the goods out the door and into Amazon's warehouse. Often making the ASN and packing the boxes and getting the labels on them and getting that to Amazon. That can be not only a very time-consuming process, but it also can be filled with error, potential for human issues, inefficiency. And these are the things which can contribute to shortages and issues when they're being inbounded and received at Amazon. So there's the process aspect of it, to do with actually how the items are packed, how the picking is done, how the boxes are created. And then there's a technical aspect to do with whether or not using the Amazon labels, they're called the AMZNCC labels, or if you're using SSCC license plate receipt labels, which I'll come on to in a moment. If you look on the left, you'll see an AMZNCC label, pretty classic. Most people on the call will be familiar with labels that look like this. And then on the right, it's an example SSCC label. Very, very similar, just some differences. But typically the SSCC label on the right, the main difference is you're using a GS1 compliant code. So that's actually a GS1 unique code. Also, you're usually sending that through an EDI connection for your ASN. Whereas the label on the left, the AMZNCC, you're sending through the manual route through Vendor Central. And I got some stats on this in detail, which I don't want to run on too far ahead, Paul. But essentially, we've tried A/B testing these on accounts, and we generally find that the SSCC labels are received much more efficiently by Amazon, really reducing the levels of shortage claims that people are experiencing. And it's not actually technically that difficult to implement. So it's just some of the benefits of doing the switch over, becoming more compliant, tightening up those processes, and tightening up the technicals that help to inbound better with Amazon.
Yeah, and I think we had a slide on that, Chris. I know I was looking for it as you were talking, but I think this is the slide you were talking about, and it might just be worth pausing because some of these are certainly worth talking about because there's a big price to these. Do you want to take us through some of these?
Yeah, so this is not a shortage claim. This is zooming in on one particular compliance chargeback type, the carton information compliance. It was one of the ones that was starred on the previous slide. And you'll be familiar with a graph like this as well in Amazon. It's just got time along the x-axis and defect rate up the y. And that is when we started working with the company, that red dotted line straight down the middle. And when we did the switch over from what they were doing with the AMZ NCCs, switched it over to SSCCs. And it's a pretty dramatic graph. This here is not the worst chargeback that you can experience, probably in the region of hundreds of pounds per month, not necessarily in thousands or tens of thousands. But for carton information compliance, if there's anyone out there suffering with this, we'd love to help you because this one is a very quick fix in terms of time saved. Yeah, it's such a marked graph. It's kind of a bit of a no-brainer. And if anyone is experiencing this into the hundreds or thousands of pounds per month, then it's going to be very cost efficient for you to investigate the uses of SSCC on your account.
I think was there another slide, Chris, that we wanted to refer to here?
Yeah, I think it's it's talking about efficient receive is the next stage. So I mentioned two aspects. One is the process and one is the technical. If you're not familiar with the term efficient receive, essentially it's the ability for Amazon to scan the outside of the box, and then they call it efficiently receive every single item inside of it with one scan. If that process fails, they have to open the box up, take each item out and scan them one by one. And this is very common. You'll see, you ship 100 units in, or you ship 5 boxes of 20 in, and then you go to the Amazon PO and it says how many you've ordered 100, accepted 100. How many have they received? 98. How many have they received? 93, or something like that. There's a slight difference. And that is usually happening when they have to open up the box, lift each item out, and scan it. And there's an introduction of human error actually at the Amazon fulfillment center because there was something went wrong with the label. So when they can scan the outside of the box, that's called efficient receive. And when they have to open it up and lift it out, that's called each receive. Somewhat confusingly, both with the acronym ER. But the benefit that you're really aiming for is the efficient receive. And we did some work with a customer. If you can inflate this image a little bit for me, Paul. We did a switch from using AMZ NCCs to using SSCCs. And then we asked Amazon, what is that efficient receive rate on this account? So that top line there where it says 1 ER with the red circles highlighted, we saw a period for 8 months trailing with an 85% efficiently received ratio. And then we ran the experiment using SSCCs and EDI after that, went up to 97% efficiently received goods, which is such a huge increase on the account. It doesn't mean it's perfect. I mean, you can 97% is not 100%, but for me, going from 85 all the way up to 97% inbound efficiently received was a really big win. And the period of time for this is 8 months either side of the change. And it was a reasonably big account. It was about 730,000 items or 19,000 cartons. So I would say it's a pretty significant set of data points that reflects the changeover.
Yeah, I think that's the thing we tend to forget. We just look at little percentages, and there's a couple of percentage points here and there, but I think we remember these are across huge volumes for most vendors. So there's a very large, really big size of the price here specifically.
Yeah. So what this reflects, Paul, is its reduction in chance for error. So it doesn't necessarily mean their shortages were 15% and now their shortages are 3%. It's more like their potential for error existed on 15% of their shipments, and now their potential for error only exists on 3% of their shipments. Now, me being me, I'm always still driving on how can I get that 3% down to 0, because that's just the way I am. But I have to take a step back and say, well, actually, 85% is okay, but 97% is really good. And when you're dealing with a big company that's probably doing 7-8 figure business with Amazon, if you can say we're going to take you from 85 to 97%, and it's going to be something reasonably quick win we can look at, then they're going to say, yeah, that sounds really great. And this isn't necessarily true for every company that we work with, because where they start and where they end is obviously going to be different for each one. There might be other operational systemic challenges that the company is facing, which mean that it's not just a case of changing a technical process and changing the inside of the warehouse. Maybe they need to review the way they package their boxes, or they need to review the way that they are sizing them, or something like that. But it is a case of a good example of how switching to SSECs, implementing EDI, has really helped transform the inbound receive rate of that particular company.
Well, that's huge. What about GTINs? Can we talk about GTINs receiving as well? Where does that fit in?
Yeah, so as a slight zoom out, there are three main options that companies have. They have AMZ-NCC, SSEC, and GTIN receive. And these are three main options that people have. You can optionally also for not send in labels, but I wouldn't recommend this because they're just going to charge you hand over fist. We've talked about AMZ-NCC and SSEC. The third option is what's called GTIN receive. So if you have the slide up, it will describe how GTIN receive is mainly suitable for food and drink vendors, usually, not always, but typically. And it has the main benefit, the number one big main benefit of GTIN receive is you don't need to attach carton labels to each carton, but you only label up the pallet. If you're still doing a small parcel shipment, you still need to attach the ASN label to each box, otherwise it's only at the pallet level. And for this to work, you have to synchronize in what your GTINs are straight into Amazon. And so that they are using the barcode that's just printed on the outside of the cardboard box. So you're not applying a label to the box, you're just using the UPC or the GTIN that's printed, usually on the cardboard of the box that you're sending in. Typically suitable when you're sending in pure fixed pack carton sizes. So if you're sending in 6s, 24s, 144s, and so on, GTIN receive is brilliant. Or if you're doing eaches, you're sending a whole microwave and you've got 23 of them or 24 of them on a pallet, you just put them on the block and ship the whole pallet in. Really good for that. It's very not good for anything where you have a mixed carton. So if you have a box which contains 3 of this and 2 of that, you really don't want to, it just would never work. You get chargebacks through the roof. You have to use SSEC or the AMZ-NCC method. But as we've discussed, I wouldn't recommend that. I would recommend using SSECs.
That's great, Chris. While we're deep into the topic, just a reminder that this is a live show and we'd love to hear your questions. So if you have questions, make sure you put them in the LinkedIn comments section, and we will actually get them automatically, and we'll try and answer as many as possible. Now, we've probably done a bad job of that in the past, but today we're going to try even harder than before. So make sure you post those questions. So while we're waiting for people to post some questions, Chris, let's talk a little bit about warehouse processes. How do warehouse processes impact this whole topic that we've been talking about?
Yeah, so the bit that we've talked about so far has been the technical aspect. So which technical operation, or which process you're going to use inbounding your goods into Amazon. The thing I want to talk about next is more the physical process getting stuff into Amazon. So you have people that are picking stuff up, packing it, writing it down, entering that into Amazon, packing those goods, and then shipping them to an Amazon fulfillment center. That is often a source of problems too. So I would say not only is it a time sink, but it's also a potential source of error. So if you've got your own warehouse, I would really recommend going through, and it's not so much auditing who's making the mistake and why are we getting problems and you must be doing something wrong, but really looking at actually how does our process work? Is there any way we could be improving this? Is there any place in which this could be causing a problem that we could maybe look at changing the process and fixing? So very commonly, I'm talking to people that have piles and piles of paperwork. They have a pick list for one order and they have a pick list for next order, and someone has to write, this was box 1, this was box 2, this was box 3. And then they have to take all that and then give it to someone else who then has to spend hours and hours and hours keying that all into Amazon, which not only is slow and it's pretty boring, but it's very inefficient and it could cause errors. So you've got potential issues there. Now that's if you've got your own warehouse. And if you've got a 3P warehouse, if you're using a third-party warehouse company, you want to have a discussion with them. Hey, how does your process work? How are things recorded electronically? Do you mind if we come and have a chat and just check that it's all compliant with Amazon? If you want to defuse the conversation, just blame it on Amazon. Just say, look, it's not us trying to be awkward. We just want to check Amazon's introduced this latest compliance thing. We just got to come and check it out. If that's okay, and we can look at it. And critically, you'll want to understand, are they charging you for that? Because often, a 3P company will say, hey, it's taken us 6 hours to go and fulfill this. If we're shipping to any other retailer, we can get it done in half an hour. But whenever we've got an Amazon order to do, it takes us ages because we have all this extra headaches to do. And check out, are they charging you for that? Because if they are, then it might make a lot of sense to be considering other alternate ways of doing that process that can help speed that up.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you, as you work with a lot of clients in this space, as you work with them, what are some of the indicators that you look at, or some of the data that you look at to quickly form a view, whether it's leakage or, pick and pack issues on the vendor side? What is there? If you had to sort of form an hypothesis, what is the first data point or report that you like to look at?
The first thing, obviously, is just talking with people. Like, I like to chat to, there's usually like an Amazon account manager. There's someone who does the orders. There's someone who does the shipments, someone in the warehouse. Just have a quick chat. Hi, are you enjoying it? Is it going well? What do you think about? Then the chargeback dashboard is your number one place to go. And then also your operational shortages and issues there. So you want to be looking at particularly purchase order on-time accuracy, cost information compliance, and then the levels of shortage claims. Between those three things, you get quite a good feel of where a company is at in their overall picture of how challenging the situation is. And you also want to try and view it in proportion to the main account. If you've got 10 million in sales and your chargebacks are down at like the 10, 15, 20,000 pounds a year level, it's something you can improve upon. But generally, I'd say that's pretty good. But if you're doing 100,000 a year and your issues are 20, 15,000, then that's terrible, because that's 15%, 20% of your issues just being lost through inefficiency. So you want to try and consider all things in proportion as well. So it's a bit of a discussion with people, and then it's just looking at raw data and raw numbers and trying to understand, okay, actually, how big of a business priority is this for you? Is Amazon something you think you'll be investing in 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 5 years? Or are actually you looking to scale down your operation? Because oftentimes people haven't actually really explored this side of things. There's one poor soul or two poor souls usually assigned to dealing with it, but no one's really brought the table together and had that conversation.
And what about the, we've spoken about obviously the receiving process on Amazon, the labeling, the pick and pack process in the warehouse. I guess there's also the topic of our broader admin processes. What do you observe as you talk to your clients? Can you speak a bit to that in terms of the opportunity too?
Yeah, so one of the other really big chargebacks that people have is purchase order on-time accuracy. And one of those chargeback types is the down confirmation charge. So if you have an order and then you cancel it late in the day, you get charged for the amount that you cancel, typically 3% of the amount that you reduce. So any kind of process that you have where it's taking the orders and then readjusting them at a later date, and if you're doing that too late, or it's being managed inefficiently, or someone goes on holiday and all of a sudden, they're on vacation, so guess what? Something got forgotten about. It's a £10,000 order that didn't get cancelled, but we knew it had to be cancelled. Guess what? You're now being charged 3% of that £10,000 to, because of just an admin hiccup. And again, it comes back to things can be slow and they can be inefficient, but they can also really introduce sources of error. So you can have systems that can help you keep track of your orders. You have an ERP system probably with how orders are progressing through the flowchart and through the journey. And you can also have a system to make sure that orders get cancelled off, or they get rejected, or they get something done with them, because that can be reducing the orders. So sometimes what I work through with people is this flowchart where we kind of try to identify what's the process that you're working through when it comes to processing the orders. And it will say, oh yeah, it looks a bit like this. Not 100% always like this, but you work down the stages saying the order's being raised, it's being accepted, confirmed, who allocated the stock, who did the pick, when was the items packed, how were they done, when were the labels printed, when was the shipment made, when was the invoice made. And it's not set in stone, but usually there's a kind of Monday morning, Wednesday morning for the beginning bit, then there's the Tuesday afternoon, Thursday afternoon for the shipping bit. And it helps to have the conversation of actually how much time are we spending on each aspect of this. So if you want to download this, there's a link there, you can put it in the chat as well. Very welcome to download a little process sheet that helps you step through that process, identify pain points, and review actually, is there a chunk of time which is taking way too long for what it should be.
Yeah, that's great, Chris, and thank you for putting this together. For those, Chris just mentioned it. We will put this in the comments straight when this recording's over. We'll email it out to you as well, so you can benefit from some of the material that Chris has put together here. It's super useful. Cool. We need to start wrapping things up, Chris, and I want to have a look at the questions in a sec. But one first question from me is really around put yourself in the shoes of a relatively new Amazon vendor. Say, let's say I've been supplying Amazon for, say, 12 months. I'm fairly new to it. I'm very excited because Amazon is ordering my product. What sort of issues do you typically see after that first 12 months, and what are the areas for improvement that tend to manifest themselves amongst a lot of those cases?
Yeah, I mean, it's an exciting time if you've been invited to join the vendor program. It's a really great opportunity for your business. Often sales will kind of start, they'll spike as you do some launch runs, and they come down, and then they have like a nice organic growth going forwards, which is really cool. Usually around the 12-month mark, like you're saying, you start to, hopefully, you're hitting scaling problems. So you've started, you've launched in, okay, it's going to be a 6-figure, it's going to be a 7-figure business for us. We've really got a great opportunity. And as it starts to grow, things start to creak a little bit. We've got to hire more people. We've got to take on more people in the warehouse. Oh, it's Christmas. So, we've got Christmas coming up probably in a few months' time. In terms of the wholesale market, that's kind of September, October, November is when you really start to experience that crush in the warehouse. And you've got to take people on, and people are doing many times their order level. And if you're a bit, it's not so much naive, but just necessarily unaware of how Amazon works, all of a sudden you have orders just raining on you, which is great. But to actually get them out the door and get them out on time, it can be enormously stressful. So if you don't mind me sharing, Paul, one of the things we've developed for people is this little dashboard. I know you're a man who loves dashboards.
I love my dashboards. That's true, and I love what's even better than a dashboard is color coding on a dashboard. Even gets me more excited. So,
yeah. So this is one of our latest things which just come out. I don't want to, it's super detailed, super nerdy, but essentially it looks at which items you've got coming up next in orders that are due very soon, and helps identify which ones are at risk of having a chargeback associated with them. So you can take action now to prevent that chargeback from occurring. So what you can see here, it's kind of small, but you can see you've got which PO reference, which SKU, gives it a weighting. What's the chance this item is going to be cancelled? This is very likely 100% and so on. And then it weights that, attaches a value to it, and says, here's the ones that you need to deal with next. Either cancel them off or ship them or something, but there's a risk identified on these particular orders, and it's sorted by just item and by purchase order, sorted just by purchase order, sorted just by item, to really help the warehouse identify, which order should we do next? They've got 50 orders to do. Which one should we do next? Well, actually, you need to deal with the ones where you're going to have the most issues if you don't deal with them. So this is one of the cool features coming out, which you can help to do. This isn't native to Amazon. This is actually run through our platform, but it helps to identify which orders are about to have down confirmation chargebacks, and which ones you should prioritize, and then which ones you can do next to help save you that. And often this will be a decision of saving, £50, save that each day, save a couple £100 each week, and just have a tool which helps you prioritize and identify them proactively.
Now, this is very exciting. It's good to fix problems. It's even better to prevent them from happening, right? So this is really excellent. Really excellent. No doubt there is a lot of money tied up in, being able to save a lot of the spend here just by acting on this dashboard. So I think that's really great insights, Chris. Thank you for sharing that with us. We are out of time. I am having a look at the Q&A at the moment, and we've got a lot of comments, but very few questions actually. I do have one from James here. I think we both know James pretty well. I don't know if you can see it, Chris.
I can.
He's asking if you have a fresh haircut. I was more commenting on your tan and how tan people are on the British Isles these days with the amazing summer. But
I think
Sorry, go
I
ahead.
think last time you had James on last time, and I think he'd just had a fresh haircut, so he's returning the compliment that I gave to him when he was on the same seat that I'm in now. But yeah, no, actually reasonably fresh, James. Good observation. I think last week, I just in the mirror. I'm still doing lockdown haircuts. That's probably way too personal to share on a business stream to do at Amazon. But I still, I find the barbers very awkward to go to, so I just like to just do it in the mirror.
Cool. Well, Chris, we are out of time. We've just crossed over the 30-minute mark. But before we completely wrap up, of course, I want to thank you for your time. Every time we have on a guest, and you've certainly risen to the occasion, just the generosity of which you are prepared to go to the detail, go to the specifics, share your own proprietary content on the show. Thank you so much for doing that, Chris. I really appreciate it. Now, I'm sure there are viewers that are watching this today, or maybe watching the playback, that are interested in exploring your services. For them, what is the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, hopefully my details will be either in the chat or somewhere on the screen. Do feel free to send me a message. That's my email on screen there, chris@khoocommerce.com. Or you can go to our website. Got a phone number on there. Just give me a call. We're based in the UK, so if you're calling from abroad, just make sure you add +44 at the front. Or just the email's usually the best because time zones and everything sorting out the time. But LinkedIn's also good. Ping me a message there. More than happy to help anyone if they've got particular questions on this topic. It's worth saying as well that this is one aspect of the chargeback story. There are many agencies out there which do like reclaiming, really, really good agencies that do things which get back and reclaw those back for you. And if you've done everything that I've spoken about today, maybe you found it super frustrating because you're saying, yep, I've done all that, I've done all that, I've done all that, and I've still got problems. What next? Well, send me a message. I'll put you in touch with some people that still specialize in basically going to Amazon and just, fighting them on your behalf. And they're usually a no-win, no-fee kind of service. So they'll say, we'll take a cut of whatever they get back from you. This is how they work. So that's just to say, if you've still had problems with it, it's been frustrating, I empathize with you. I feel your frustration when it comes to that. But send me a message and I'll see if I can connect you with someone who can help a bit more with that.
Thank you very much, Chris. And that's it for today's episode of Marketplace Masters. Thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to visit Merchant Spring to access exclusive offers only available to viewers of this show. Till next time, goodbye.
This episode is brought to you by Merchant Spring. Vendor performance data at your fingertips. Visit merchantspring.io for more information.